What is up, everybody? We are here today and we're going to be talking about this cute little guy right here, Azumarill. Azumarill is a Pokemon that got recently added in with the Isle of Armor update, the new DLC, and this thing is an absolute monster of a Pokemon. Now, today we're going to be going over an in-depth analysis of this Pokemon, going over some of his strengths, his weaknesses, good setups for him, everything you can pretty much cover in one video for one Pokemon in particular. So, we're going to jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's go. So to start off, we're going to start with the very basics. So Azumarill is a Pokemon that actually is a water fairy type, which is a phenomenal typing, being that fairy typing is one of the best typings in the game, and water is also arguably one of the best typings in the game. Now, Azumarill here is a monster. So we're going to look at some of the base stats that we have here for him. Now, Azumarill comes in with a base stat of 100 HP, 50 attack, 80 defense, 60 special attack, 80 special defense, and 50 speed. So overall, I would say it has a fairly decent stat distribution. There's no stat on it that is kind of absurdly crazy or wild, but overall it's pretty solid. I mean, it's primarily an attack Pokemon, so we're not really going to need to worry about utilizing that special attack stat. And with the speed, that's also not going to be too much of a concern, as it kind of actually is a little bit lower than most of the mid speed Pokemon. So it kind of falls in this sweet spot between like min speed and mid speed. Now, Azumarill has two primary abilities and one hidden ability. Sap Sipper, when used, will nullify the damage effects of any grass type move used. When it is hit with a grass type move, it is absorbed and it gains one attack boost. Now, this is a pretty good option, as grass type moves are one of Azumarill's primary weaknesses. It's a fairly common typing in the metagame right now, so running Sap Sipper on this can help with preventing a lot of Pokemon like Rillaboom or Venusaur from kind of getting the upper hand on it. And according to Pikalytics, that is going to be one of the abilities used at 2.24% of all Azumarills that you might see out there. The other ability, being Thick Fat, is an ability that is going to lessen the damage of ice and fire attacks. Now, this one is not really going to be too substantial, because for the most part, those aren't things that Azumarill is worried about getting hit with. So for the most part, you're not going to see too many Azumarills running Thick Fat for their set. Now, the big money maker that Azumarill comes with is its ability, Huge Power. Now, Huge Power takes Azumarill's base attack stat of 50 and doubles it. So right off the bat, you're getting an Azumarill with a attack stat of 100, which, yes, is still not a phenomenally high attack stat compared to some others with attack stats of 120 plus, but that in combination with its typing and coverage makes Azumarill very threatening in the metagame, with what you end up seeing a lot running around out there like Cinderaces. Now, while Nature's and EV spreads can be something that are a little bit left up to the individual using it, and also the set that you're going to be running with this Pokemon, some of the most frequent sets that we see are going to be Adamant Nature Azumarill, which would be plus attack minus special attack, or the second most popular one is going to be Brave, being a plus attack minus speed. Now, that one, while it sounds counterintuitive, this is going to be very useful if you're running a Trick Room set. Adamant is pretty standard. I mean, that's going to be, if you're not running Trick Room, you're just running for normal stat, like a normal speed stat, then Adamant will be what you're primarily going to be going with in that case. But again, this is more left up to the user to kind of decide where you want your stats to be allocated. One of the things that makes Azumarill so threatening in this metagame is the fact that it gets access to so many different moves. Now, Azumarill on its own can be ran as either a physical or as a utility or defensive set. Now, on screen, I'm going to go ahead and put up the offensive and defensive moves that it learns that I would say are the most popular used. I'm also going to cover a little bit about some of the most popular sets that you'll probably see out there running with Azumarill. With Azumarill's huge amount of access to different types of move, this gives Azumarill a pretty good opportunity to set up multiple different types of sets. So the first one we're going to be going over is going to be the Azumarill Trick Room Bulky set. Now, with the Azumarill Trick Room Bulky set, we really want to be heavily relying on that Trick Room to be able to do some damage. Now, again, Azumarill on his own is pretty good and can handle his own, but where he can really thrive is under a Trick Room setup. Now, once you have Trick Room set up, you can Dynamax into Azumarill, and as long as you have min speed, your speeds are pretty much going to be, I believe it falls around 90 at min speed. This is going to help you underspeed a lot of Pokemon, especially if you're not going up against another hard Trick Room team. And so you'll be able to get some pretty good damage off and get some stat boosts from your Dynamax. Now, with this set, most of the time you're going to be wanting to run a Brave Nature on it, so you get the plus attack minus speed. You're going to want to run min speed, so again, 0 speed IVs if you can get it. And then on top of that, you're just going to want to throw on an item that's going to help you do some extra damage and pack a little bit of a harder punch. So something like a Life Orb is definitely going to help you out here. Now, again, the whole goal of this set is you want to be able to run some primary damaging moves and then protect in the 4th slot or whatever your fourth move is of choice. Now, I like to run protect on it just in case I go Trick Room and they have something that might be a little bit faster than me, or they want to switch in on me, or I just need to check something that might be coming in. Now, as far as IVs go for this Azumarill, you're going to want to make sure that you're running a max HP, max attack Azumarill. So 252 IVs in HP, 252 in attack. The last 4 you can put into special defense or defense, whichever you prefer. But yeah, you're going to want to have that maxed out attack IV just so you can be hitting as hard as you can. Now, the second set that I'm going to be going over is probably going to be one of my more favorite sets running with Azumarill, and that's going to be a coaching set. Now, coaching is going to be one of those new moves that just got added in with the Isle of Armor DLC. And what coaching does is coaching allows a fighting type Pokemon or a Pokemon that can learn it. It allows them to give a +1 attack, +1 defense boost to their partner Pokemon. Now, this move can be used through Protect, and it can also be used on switch-in. So if you switch into another Pokemon and you want to make them a little bit bulkier, then you can just switch in hit them with the coaching on the same turn. Now, the reason why this set is so good, in my opinion, is that this set just completely snowballs out of control. What I mean by that is you can pretty much start off on turn 1 getting off your coaching, and then if you're also Dynamaxing that same turn, so you're getting double health. Azumarill is pretty good, is already pretty specially defensive and specially defensively bulky. And on top of that, you're also getting the attack boost. And if you're using a Dynamax move like Max Steel Spike, then you're also getting another defense boost on top of that. So that means that technically on turn 1, you can end up with a +1, +2, or +1 attack, +2 defense Azumarill right off the bat. Now, the other reason why I like this set is, let's say they come in with something that you're not sure if you can go up against. Like, let's say in this case, they come out with a Primarina, and some Primarinas like to run Energy Ball for exactly this time. So what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll run, I'll defend or I'll protect the first turn, and then I'll coaching the Azumarill. Since coaching goes through protect, that gives Azumarill the ability to pretty much scout out to see exactly what moves they might have, and you're still getting that bulk boost with the attack boost on it as well. Now you can kind of just keep snowballing this as time goes on, because the more coaching you give the Azumarill, the more defensive and attack oriented it's going to be. And on top of that, it's going to force your enemies to prioritize and target down that Azumarill. And if they don't, they're going to get punished for it. So you're pretty much going to be forcing them to split their resources between KOing your coaching user and also trying to do enough damage to not die by the Azumarill. Now, Azumarill after on turn 2 can end up having +2 attack, +2 defense, which if it's a physically based team, they are not going to be in a very good place where they can do enough damage to Azumarill to successfully kill it in a efficient manner. The third set we're going to be talking about today is going to be the Belly Drum set. So this set is, I would actually say this is a kind of a common set with people that are just getting started with using Azumarill. This is kind of the set that this is actually the first set that I ran with Azumarill when I first started using him, until I realized that he didn't need it necessarily. But what you're going to do is you'll run your 3 standard moves. So most of the time it'll be Play Rough, it'll be Aqua Jet or Waterfall, and then the third one can be whatever you want, whether it's Steel Roller or Superpower, whatever the case is. Now, the 4th slot, you're going to run Belly Drum. Now, what Belly Drum does, if you don't know already, Belly Drum maximizes your attack at the cost of half of your health. Now, why is this important? This is a pretty effective way where you can get a massive attack boost right in turn 1, and you can also start doing damage immediately. So the way that I'll usually run it, I'll run Belly Drum with a Citrus Berry, and then I'll also run it with Aqua Jet as my priority stab move. Now, this is a pretty good setup, because as soon as you get your Belly Drum off and you get your attack boost, you can start going in with priority attacks with Aqua Jet, meaning that you're going to be, even though you're slower than most things, unless they have Psychic Terrain up or they have something that has a higher priority than you, like Rillaboom with Grassy Glide, that means you're going to be smacking people first and doing a ton of damage up front. Now, the downside to this move is that in the case where they run a spread move or they run anything that might lower your health beneath half, then, or I would even say lower your health by more than a quarter, you might be in some trouble, because you're going to hit your Belly Drum, and your health is either going to go to almost kill you, or you're going to be at less than half, which is not ideal for Azumarill. Like, you really want to be able to put out that damage as soon as possible. Now, one key thing to note about using a Belly Drum set for Azumarill is you have to make sure you're running the right health point value. Now, what I mean by that is, because the way that Pokemon works is when it is going through and it's doing the calculations, it's rounding up or down based on the value that your HP is at. So since everything is calculated that way, at level 50, if you end up on a odd number, then the game is going to automatically round up, meaning that when you use your Belly Drum, you're actually not going to be cut down to exactly half health. You're actually going to be cut to half health plus 1 HP, which means if you're running a Citrus Berry, which is the way I recommend running it with Belly Drum, that means you're not going to proc your Citrus Berry. You're pretty much going to go down to still being in green, and you're not going to get your health boost. You're just going to lose half your health, and you're just going to be sitting there with a Citrus Berry that is probably not going to do much. So the way that you need to run it to where you can actually get it to proc your berry is you need to run your HP stat in a very specific way. So this is where running something like Team Builder is definitely going to help out. So we're going to jump into Team Builder and build ourselves an Azumarill really quick. All right, so right here we have our Azumarill set built in Pokemon Showdown. And so I'm going to kind of go over and explain what I was talking about with the HP stat. So pretty much what we want to look for is we want to get this number here, the final HP stat, not the base HP stat. We want to get this to the point where when we divide this by 4, we get a half decimal. So we get a 0.5. But when we divide it by 8, we get a 0.25. Now, what this is going to do is this is going to make it so when we go and we do our belly drum, it's going to round down instead of rounding up. So it's going to force it to use that citrus berry, so you end up proccing your item. So the way you can calculate this is, so we're just going to look at the base right here. So let's just max out our HP, since this is what most people are going to do. So 404. Now, if we come over here, we do 404 divided by 8, we get 50.5. But if we do 404 divided by 4, we get an even number. We don't get a decimal point. So that means that is not going to work. So we're going to take this down one more, and we know we can't use an odd number. So we're going to do 402. 402 divided by 8 is 50.25. Now, what is 402 divided by 4? That gives us 100.5. So this number right here, this 402 stat, this is going to work the best for your Azumarill, because you're still going to be pretty close to max. I mean, we're only, 6 or 8 points under the max value. And on top of that, you're ensuring that when you use your belly drum, that you're going to be proccing your citrus berry and you're going to be getting that quarter health back, rather than just waiting and getting nothing back and then possibly dying from it. So something to keep in mind when you're calculating out your stats. All right, so we're in Pokemon Showdown right now, and the first set we're going to be looking at is going to be our Trick Room set for Azumarill. Now, this is more or less how I usually will run my bulky Trick Room set for him. So as you can see here, we have our Azumarill. We have him with a Life Orb. We get him with huge power, the pretty standard setup for doing max DPS with him. And then in these slots, I have Aqua Jet, Play Rough, Steel Roller, and Protect. Now, if you're not a person that likes to run Protect, you can always run a offensive moves like Superpower or Bounce here. And for if you don't need Aqua Jet, if you want something that's going to pack a little bit more of a punch to it, you can always replace Aqua Jet with Waterfall. So that's always a good move that can give a chance to flinch, and it also deals a lot more damage, doing double what Aqua Jet does. So I guess kind of the important part of this set is going to be the nature and the speed IVs. So we're going to want to make sure, or speed EVs, I should say, more than anything. So we're going to want to make sure that when you're running your Trick Room set, you're going to want to be running your Azumarill with 0 speed. So 0 speed IVs or EVs, whichever one, I always get them mixed up. And you're going to want to run a Brave nature on it. So plus attack minus speed nature. Now, this is going to help you get your speed stat as low as possible at 94, which it's not the slowest, but it is going to it's going to underspeed most things in Trick Room. Like most standard set Pokemon are going to be running at least base 65, 70 or higher. So 50 is kind of a good sweet spot there. Now, you're not going to be underspeeding things like Conkeldurr or Dusclops or anything like that. Those will definitely be outspeeding you in Trick Room at least, but this will at least give you a good base that you can at least do some damage before Trick Room, and then once a Trick Room initiates, you'll be faster than most things, so that'll be good. Now, one of the things that you can run with Azumarill to get your Trick Room up is you can always run something like Bronzong. Now, why would we run Bronzong in this situation? Because Bronzong, first of all, is a very, very solid Trick Room setter. So what we can do is we can always run something like Levitate Bronzong. You can run Heat Proof if you want, but I just typically like to run Levitate. So we can run Levitate. For the item, you can kind of put in whatever you want for the item. I typically like to run mine with leftovers. And then for the moves, this is the important part here. So usually for the moves, I'll run either, if you want, you can run Zen Headbutt if you want physical. I usually just run Expanding Force because there always seems to be size spam everywhere. So I'll run Expanding Force, Ally Switch, Trick Room, not Trick. I want Trick Room. I cannot type today. Trick Room. There we go. And Protect. Now, again, Protect is one of those moves that you can kind of swap out for another offensive move if you really want to. But I do find that Bronzong with Protect on it is pretty good because I don't know why people tend to just not like a Bronzong sitting there staring at them menacingly, even when all it's doing is like ally switching or anything. But back to what I was saying. The reason why Bronzong is such a good partner for Azumarill in this case is because Bronzong can cover the weaknesses that Azumarill can't. So where Azumarill is going to be weak to things like any sludge-based attacks or any poison attacks, Bronzong is immune to those attacks. And on top of that, he gets ally switch, which means that you can just be playing mind games with them. So if like one common set I see pretty frequently is Dragalge, or however Dragalge, whatever it's pronounced as, that Mon can do some major damage to Azumarill. Now, if you surprise them with an ally switch, that means they're wasting a turn of their Dynamax where they're trying to kill Azumarill, and you're taking absolutely 0 damage. Now, on top of that, ally switch is just a decent move. So you can always ally switch turn 1 if they have something that's like an electric tacker. Bronzong will eat an electric tack and be fine. Bronzong will also eat a grass type attack and he'll be fine. So he pretty much covers a lot of the weaknesses that Azumarill has already. So, and again, the reason I run Expanding Force over like a steel type move with him is because I personally like to run my Azumarill with Steel Roller, because that means when I Dynamax, I can be getting defense boosts on top of whatever else I have. So I also feel like I don't really need two steel moves on there, since I can run Expanding Force for size spam, and then I'll have him going there too. So overall, I would say Bronzong and Azumarill is one of a pretty good core you can go with if you're looking to get that Trick Room off, and you're also looking to kind of play mind games with your opponent. Now, one of my other favorite sets for Azumarill is going to be a coaching set. So coaching is actually a new move that was introduced recently with the release of the Isle of Armor DLC. Now, coaching is a move that it's a fighting type move. It is a status move, so there's no damage done. And what it does is it gives your partner a +1 attack and +1 defense boost. Now, while this move can seem kind of insignificant on the wrong Pokemon, using it with anything that can learn Prankster is hugely beneficial, because that means you're getting priority stat boosts over everything else. Now, this can also be really useful because this move also goes through Protect, which means that you can technically use your main attacking Pokemon to check or kind of like bait out any attacks while they protect. And then your coaching Pokemon can, of course, use coaching to boost its stats through Protect. Now, my set that I like to run with this. So I kind of have something built over here already. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go ahead and change the item on this to Life Orb, because that's more likely what we'll be running. Huge Power is usually the ability you'll want to be using. And this is, besides Belly Drum, I can get rid of that and switch it for Protect. This is kind of the set you're more or less going to want to run. You can pretty much switch out Steel Roller for whatever you want, but you're going to want to run Aqua Jet, Play Rough, and Protect on this one. Now, again, there's always going to be people that don't want to run Protect. It's up to you. You can run whatever you want, but you're going to want a Protect move. Even if you have to Dynamax to get it, you're going to want something to protect you. So the way I run this set is I usually will use Azumarill as my main attacking Pokemon, and then I'll use Riolu as my coaching mon. Now, the reason being is I know Riolu is a non-evolved Pokemon, but Riolu gets Prankster. And Riolu also gets coaching. And Riolu also gets Helping Hand and Brick Break. Now, coaching, again, is kind of going to be the only one that actually matters here, because this is going to be his prime utility right here. He's pretty much going to be a coaching bot, and that's all he's going to do. Now, I run Focus Sash on my Riolu, so I don't just get one coaching off and then I'm dead. In this case, I mean, yes, if they run something like Tyranitar, then it's not really going to make too much difference because you'll be dying from that or from hail. But Focus Sash, at least, it forces them to have to pressure the Riolu and have to pay attention to it. And if they don't and they let him go unchecked, then he's just going to keep getting coachings off onto whatever physical attacking Pokemon you have. So again, I usually will run coaching on him. I'll run Helping Hand in case they have something that, like once I get down to 1 HP and I know that they're threatened by Riolu for using his coaching move, they're going to go for a priority move. So in that case, since Riolu's not very fast, I mean, his base speed is 60. That means he's going to need something that's going to be higher priority to at least help Azumarill or whatever the attacking mon is get a little bit of extra damage off. So I usually run Helping Hand, and Brick Break is purely a utility. I don't use it for damage. I pretty much only use it in the case where either I'm up against a Tyranitar and I can get a free Brick Break on him to deal some decent damage, or I'll use it to break screens. So if they come in with a Grimmsnarl, or they go G-Max Lapras, or Aurora Veil Ninetales, Brick Break is perfect for those situations. I mean, again, it's not a move I'm going to use all the time. It's not for damage. It's more just for that secondary effect. And then Protect is just the bait. So yeah, this is one of my favorite sets that I've run so far. This has been the one I've actually been using to climb the ladder for a little while, and I absolutely love it. I mean, Riolu is just one of those Pokemon that you don't see him too often. I mean, now he's showing up a little bit more now that he has coaching, but overall, he's such a solid Pokemon with Prankster that I can say pretty much any physically oriented team is going to benefit from having a Riolu, as long as you're taking care and you're running the right set and making sure that you're pulling the pressure away from him. Now we're going to start getting into matchups and other Pokemon that work well with it. So first thing we're going to go over is the different matchups for Azumarill. Now, as far as matchups, I'm only going to be really naming some of the Pokemon that I see most predominantly running around in the meta. I'll probably miss some of them that you guys might see and have an idea that Azumarill counters. But these are just the ones that I've run into so far that I've noticed that Azumarill pretty much hard counters them, and they can't really do much about it. So the first one that I've actually been very appreciative of is Azumarill against Cinderace. Now, Cinderace is just one of those Pokemon that I feel like no matter how many things I throw at it, it just demolishes everything because it has with that Libero ability. I mean, it just everyone that you see runs a different set. It does get a poison type move. I think it gets Poison Jab or something along those lines. But overall, especially Azumarill with the coaching set, because you can get coaching up even once before the Cinderace can even attack, that means right off the bat, you're already sitting pretty at +1 defense, +1 attack, which puts that Cinderace at a disadvantage. On top of that, Cinderace's most common set that I see him run is usually going to be a fighting move, a steel move, a fire type move, or like a flying type move. Now, when you actually look at it comparing everything against Azumarill, the only thing that Cinderace learns that's actually super effective against Azumarill is this poison type move. And since most Cinderaces have the syndrome of Dynamax turn 1, that means they're going to be hitting you with a max ooze, and they're going to be wasting their secondary effect because they're going to be using max ooze if they have it to try and deal damage to you, which is only going to raise their special attack, which is not going to help them in any way, shape, or form. So this is actually the perfect I would actually say Azumarill is probably one of the closest counters I've found to Cinderace. That's a hard counter. I mean, you put a Azumarill against a Cinderace, I would say 9 times out of 10 you're gonna win. Like even without coaching boost, you're gonna be doing more damage output, and you're gonna be threatening the Cinderace a lot more. Now, the second Pokemon is going to be Alolan Marowak. The thing about Alolan Marowak is that it is slower than Azumarill. So, as long as that Alolan Marowak is not in Trick Room, then you're pretty much fine. Like, you can Dynamax and then hit it with a Max Geyser, which is going to set up the rain. Thus, you're minimizing his damage from his Flare Blitz. On top of that, Azumarill is pretty bulky physically, so you can pretty much take, I know you can guaranteed take at least 1 Poltergeist without dying. Now, I haven't ran the stats or anything like that, but I have gone up against Marowaks, and I haven't found any yet that have so far been able to OHKO me. So, and I know most people are going to be running pretty standard Alolan Marowak sets where it's Alolan Marowak, Thick Club, Max Attack, Adamant, or Brave. So, yeah, I would say Azumarill's a pretty good counter to that. I mean, anything you throw at it, you're pretty much going to be able to do massive damage to it before it can do damage to you. And on top of that, it's not a super threatening Pokemon, and it usually is carried in the back. Now, the third option I see that I'm going to say Azumarill counters pretty hard is Dragapult. Dragapult is all over the meta. It has been since Pokemon Sword and Shield came out. Now, Dragapult really can't do much to touch Azumarill. And the reason I say that is because Azumarill gets Play Rough, which when Dynamaxed becomes the move that makes Misty Terrain. And Misty Terrain reduces the power of Dragon type moves. Meaning that you throw up that Misty Terrain on turn 1, and that Dragapult is pretty much not doing anything. If he throws out a Wormwind, it's not going to do much damage. If he throws out a Ghost type attack, that might do a little bit of damage, but even then, you can safely eat that with no problem. I mean, I've taken Ghost type attacks, Phantasms. I've taken 2 of them before Azumarill dies, and that's at max HP, max attack. So really, you're not going to be too threatened by the Dragapult. And on top of that, yeah, I mean, you hit him once and he's dead. I mean, unless it's bulky Dragapult, which you see sometimes. If they're running a bulky, if they're running a max attack, max speed Dragapult, which most people do, that thing is OHKO'd with your Misty Surge. So that's going to be a pretty good matchup also. Now, the last one I would actually say, which it's a more recent Pokemon that's been released with the Isle of Armor DLC, and it's been kind of a highly debated Pokemon, is going to be Urshifu. Now, Urshifu, luckily, it gets 2 variants. It gets the single strike, the single strike and surging strike, I think it's called. Where the surging strike is the water type, single strike is a dark type. Now, as you can probably imagine, Azumarill goes pretty well against both of those. Azumarill can take any dark type attacks and fighting type attacks. Azumarill can also eat up any water type attacks and fighting type attacks and just retaliate with its fairy type like Play Rough, and it's gonna do massive damage to both of them. I would say Azumarill is actually pretty much walls both of those Pokemon, and especially if you start getting your defense boosts up on that one. I mean, yes, I know they hit for critical through their main attack, but at the same time, they also can't really do that much damage normally. So, yeah, I would say Azumarill is a pretty good pick against both of those. Now, while we could talk about what Azumarill counters, I think one of the more important things that we're going to talk about is what it synergizes with, or what it works the best with. Now, there's a couple of different ones, and I think this is kind of what shines a light on Azumarill and really shows that it is a versatile Pokemon, is that it can have so many different partners and really thrive under those situations. So, 2 of them I've already named in this list, but I'm going to go over them again because they're just so darn good that I can't ignore them. But the first one that I'm going to be talking about is Hatterene, or Hatterene. I don't know which way it's pronounced. I just say it Hatterene. But Hatterene is a pretty solid Pokemon to partner with Azumarill. Now, this is because of Hattereni's availability to have Trick Room. And on top of that, Hatterene sharing the same typing as Azumarill, with both of them having the common type of Fairy. Which means that whether you're Dynamaxing Azumarill or you're Dynamaxing Hatterene, you can get your Misty Surge put up. And Misty Surge, regardless of whichever one is Dynamax, they're going to be getting a benefit from it, because you get Azumarill getting Misty Surge up, then your Hatterene's going to be throwing up her Dazzling Gleams all day, doing a ton of damage. The other way around, you get Azumarill putting out a massive amount of damage with Play Rough onto whichever Pokemon it's hitting. Now, this with Trick Room is going to be super perfect to set up your Azumarill with. And on top of that, it's even better because while Hatterene gets hit for super effective by Steel type moves, Azumarill doesn't, which means that Azumarill can somewhat kind of compensate for Hatterene's weaknesses. And overall, they pair pretty well together. Now, my second option for best partners is going to be Riolu. Now, like I said, I already mentioned him a little bit earlier in the video, so talking about him much more is just going to be repetitive. But Riolu, coaching, helping hand, he's just a coaching bot. I mean, he gets your Azumarill into a ridiculous point where he's one-shotting everything. So that's going to be the beauty of Riolu. No more needs to be said. Now, third one is going to be Alchemy. Now, Alchemy is actually kind of a Pokemon that I haven't seen around too much. It doesn't tend to pop up a whole lot since it can be a little fragile, but when I've seen it, it definitely is threatening, and not threatening on its own. It's threatening because of what it can do for its partner. Now, Alchemy gets Safeguard, it gets Decorate, and you can put Focus Sash on it, and you can just hit your Azumarill with the Decorate, and right off the bat, it's essentially getting a free weakness policy turn 1. So because of that, Alchemy is a fairly good option to go with. And on top of that, it's another Fairy type, so yeah, it will share some of those same weaknesses. But Fairy typing is just so strong in general that I really can't see any huge drawbacks from running Alchemy and Azumarill on the same team or right next to each other. Now, the fourth option here is actually going to be a split between two of them. So you can actually run Raichu or Marowak as its partner. Now, the reason why I would say Raichu or Marowak, Raichu you can run if you want more of a utility Pokemon. Marowak you can run if you want more of an offensive Pokemon. So Raichu and Marowak both get access to the ability Lightning Rod, meaning that any lightning attacks that are used on the field automatically get redirected to them. Meaning that you're eliminating a weakness, a pretty major weakness of your Azumarill just by having your partner sitting on the field. So with that being said, Raichu gets access to screens. It also gets access to Fake Out and Nuzzle, giving you some very, very decent support moves that will definitely put your opponents in a pretty bad spot. And then Marowak or Alolan Marowak, it's self-explanatory. It's Alolan Marowak. It does crazy damage with Thick Club. It gets access to Boomerang and Poltergeist and Flare Blitz. Yeah, and that's all that really needs to be said. I mean, Marowak, I would say the only downside with it is that if you put up the rain, then it gets its Flare Blitz reduced. But that's kind of it. Everything else, it synergizes with it very well. Now, the last one I'm going to say that is also one of my favorites is going to be Bronzong. I did mention him a little bit earlier as well. Now, like I stated, I'm not going to go into too much depth on it because I've already mentioned him. But yeah, super solid, gets Ally Switch, immune to poison, and he gets that Trick Room. So he kind of can do everything at once. So yeah, Bronzong, super solid option. Now we're going to go into what counters Azumarill. I'm just going to go over some of the, I would say the top 4 counters that I see frequently in the meta that are extremely threatening to Azumarill, that pretty much if you see those coming out, you best hightail it out of there and switch out like right away, or protect or do something. You have to have something planned for these at least. First one, because he is so prevalent in the meta after the huge buff he got after the DLC release, gonna be Rillaboom. Rillaboom is everywhere, and I'm not even joking. He is everywhere. I would say almost every other game at least, the opponent has a Rillaboom on their team. Now, Rillaboom is a huge threat because he gets access to Grassy Glide. And Grassy Glide, Rillaboom is going to be faster than Azumarill in almost every instance. On top of that, unless you're in Trick Room, Rillaboom is still going to be getting priority using Grassy Glide, and your Aqua Jet's not going to do anything to him. On top of that, Rillaboom is one of the Pokemon that if he is running a standard set with Assault Vest and max attack and max HP, his G-Max drum solo it spells death for you. It spells your Azumarill is a stain on the floor. So you see a Rillaboom, just get out of there. Just don't even try and don't try and see if you can 1v1 it. Just escape. The next one is going to be Toxtricity. Now, Toxtricity isn't super prevalent in the meta, but it is around. It does kind of float in. I would say I see it maybe every 1 in 10 games. But this is pretty much Azumarill's worst enemy because you run into Toxtricity, all of its moves it has are all going to be super effective against you. Whether it's running Discharge or it's running like Sludge Wave, anything it hits you with is pretty much going to be hitting you for a super effective damage. On top of that, it's probably running Throat Spray, which means if you survive the first hit, you're staring down the barrel of a +1 special attack Toxtricity, which will definitely KO you the next turn, like guaranteed. There's no questioning it. The next one is everybody's favorite. It's Duraludon, the giant Trump Tower Pokemon. Duraludon, typically, unfortunately for us, carries with it Thunderbolt. Now, while it's not a stab type move, I would say 90% of the time that I see a Duraludon, it's G-Maxing. So you're not going to be staring down a Thunderbolt Duraludon. You're going to be looking at a Max Lightning Duraludon, which is going to be hitting you for, if not OHKOing, it's going to be hitting you for a lot of damage, and they're going to have Electric Surge set up after. Now, not only is it bad because it gets Thunderbolt, its type matching is a terrible matchup for you. Because Azumarill only gets Water Jet, and it gets Steel Roller, and it gets Play Rough, none of those moves are going to be effective against Duraludon. There's pretty much no move. I mean, unless you're running Superpower, which I don't see very often on Azumarill, you're not going to be getting a whole lot done against that Duraludon. And even then, you go Superpower against Duraludon, you might do a little bit over a quarter, maybe half of its health in G-Max, but you're gonna be toast as soon as it hits you back with that Max Lightning. So always keep your eye out for Duraludon. You see that one come in, just switch out. Now, Venusaur. Venusaur is actually one of those Pokemon that is commonly paired with Rillaboom. Because it's commonly used in Sun teams, usually you'll see Rillaboom and Torkoal on the same team. And Rillaboom, like I said, is already #1 threat on the board. And then you get Venusaur thrown into the mix, which is going to be getting the Chlorophyll speed boost. It also will be getting, if they have Torkoal already as well, it's also going to be getting that turn 1 Solar Beam and Chlorophyll. And on top of that, Venusaur lately has been, ever since its update from the Isle of Armor, where it got its G-Max form, it has been pretty much very, very frequent in the meta where you're going to see Life Orb, Venusaurs running G-Max and then smashing you with a Power Whip or with a, I think it's whatever the grass move is called. I always forget that one. But yeah, essentially you see a Venusaur or Rillaboom, you got to be hightailing it out of there because you're not going to be surviving much from that. Now, aside from that, I can't really think of too many other counters that might give a whole lot of problems for Azumarill. I'm sure there are some out there. I just can't think of them at the moment. So if you do think of some more, you can always put them down in the comments. And yeah, I can always just try those matchups out as well. All right. So we've come to the end of our in-depth analysis on this beautiful Pokemon Azumarill. I'm gonna go ahead and just give a final review or overview and my final impressions. So overall, Azumarill has a pretty decent attack stat at 100 after its ability Huge Power. Its versatility that it gets with its huge plethora of offensive and defensive moves makes it so you can really set up any set that you might want to run with it. It has some pretty decent stat coverage to kind of put you in a very good place to soak up any attack or special attacks that might be coming your way. In my opinion, it has one of the best typings in the game with Water and Fairy type, pretty much making you immune to some of the more common things that you'll see in the meta. It gets stab priority with Aqua Jet, which is a huge benefit for such a slow Pokemon. And on top of that, you can really run pretty much any set you might want to run with it. I mean, you can run a Min Speed set, you could run a Belly Drum set, you could run a Utility set, anything you really want. So it's a very fun Pokemon to experiment around with. Now, overall, after taking everything into account of what makes Azumarill such a good Pokemon, in my opinion, I think I would have to give it a solid 8 out of 10 for the Pokemon scaling. Now, again, this is only a prevalent rating to the current meta. Today's date is July 16th, 2020. So this information may not be as important in even a month from now, especially when the new DLC drops in a little bit later this year. Then this information may just be complete garbage. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Overall, though, I think Azumarill is sitting in a pretty good spot. I think there's no reason why you wouldn't want to run an Azumarill on your team, whether you have a synergizing with something or you just have it there as a offensive or defensive threat. I think it's always going to be a pretty solid pick no matter what team you put it in. Now, if you guys have any other ideas for Pokemon that you might want an in-depth analysis on, definitely leave them down below in the comments, and I'll be sure to go ahead and do some research, put in my man hours, and get some footage for you guys on using that Pokemon and really showcasing how great it can be. Now, if you like this kind of content, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to see when I go live or when I release new content, go ahead and click that bell icon underneath the video. Till then, this is Dapper Dan. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a terrific day. Peace.